Spangler's World Network, I should say, and Tales from the Film Set on Zingo TV channel 251. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android. When you download, kindly rate, leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is also available on the Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and also all smart TVs 2016 and forward. All right, how's everybody doing out there? This is Tales from the Film Set, alongside the amazing, charismatic, personable Jasmine Bloch-Krempels and the amazing, charismatic, and personable Mr. Rob Stats. As always, find us on Twitter on Film Set Tales and also on Facebook on Tales from the Film Set, as we share stories of the things that we've seen, the weird people we've interacted with, and the celebrities that we have 1,000 stories of. So, how you folks doing, first off?
I had a bizarre day of... I very rarely do you show up at set, hair, makeup, wardrobe, and then they tell 150 background to go home.
Ooh.
They did not indicate that it was COVID related. They said it. Meanwhile, let me tell you, I was in the elevator with some palm trees that were going up to set. So it was supposed to be like a Coachella looking rooftop concert, and it was like 14 degrees. So it's like really not the best day, but like we all knew it was going to suck and we were going to do it anyway.
Was it an overnight?
No, it was like, it was just like in the day in the sunlight, and everybody's all suited up and they're like, oh, just kidding. We're not going to use any of you today. Like, go get your COVID test and leave. Which is like, well, we're already at the hotel. You've already paid for the hotel. It's not raining. So like, all right, that was suspect. Well, today I got a little message that was like, 3 crew members tested positive for COVID. It wasn't, if you haven't been contacted, like it wasn't in your area or whatever, but we need every single background person to come back by 8 o'clock tonight and test. And I was just like, well, okay, like I'll get in the car and drive there. I was driving over the Williamsburg Bridge, right? There's no way to get off the Williamsburg Bridge. Got a text that's like, just kidding, if you're on your way, do not enter the building until further notice. Not today, not tomorrow. Like, sorry for the inconvenience.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Dude, you should get paid for that. Like, seriously, put a claim in for that.
Okay, so I called before I left, because it's, now I'm leaving at rush hour, right? But I knew I wanted to try to get back here for 9 o'clock, so I was like, well, I shouldn't show up there at 8 o'clock. And I was like, hey, is this paid? And he's like, well, they said it was, but this is about safety. I was like, yeah, man, but I can go to CVS up the street and get tested.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not worried about the test. Like, I can get a test. That's not the issue. But if it's paid, then yeah, I'll be there. He's like, well, it's paid. So I got in the car and now it's not paid or not. It didn't happen. But I'm like, oh, is it one of the testing people?
Oh, imagine that. That would be insane.
Yeah.
Although that's probably the least like worrisome, because they're never in contact with anyone for like the maximum amount of time.
Oh,
like,
no, well, I don't think anyone, we never even left holding yesterday, so I'm not really concerned. That's why it's like a crew person. Like, I didn't see any crew people. I sat with a million other background people, so I'm not actually concerned, but it's just the fact they were like, do not enter the testing area. I was like, well, so who knows? That was supposed to be a 2-day shoot, and it was a 0-day shoot. Oh, well, I got paid for yesterday, but
that's the important thing, yes. So,
but like, so much, and it's the same thing. Like, you guys know, if you get canceled when you're there, you can't get other work for the day. You can't even get work for the next day because you needed to test 2 days prior to that. So everyone's just like, like out of luck.
This too shall pass. We'll get through it.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, so that was frustrating, but I'm pretty sure I don't have COVID anyway. No, I mean I'm 2 shots in, so I'm
all right. You'll be fine. Yeah, I'm only at 1 right now. So.
No, you're probably.
I'm still trying to get my first.
I know the right people.
But I had a similar day yesterday. Like, I had the first, like, actually twice in the last 2 weeks. I had a nap day. Like, I got paid to. I was up in Nyack, like, not this Friday, the one before. The only thing that stunk about that was I was in the car and it got cold, and I was like, oh, my feet are cold. Like, I couldn't turn the car on because the car was kind of in the shot, but I just reclined the seat and I just laid down and took a nap. I got literally like never got off my normal sleep schedule because I took like a 3-hour nap in the car, heard somebody yell like either Martini or Abby, and I popped up and I was like, we going home? And we wrapped on the next thing, was never on camera. And then yesterday we were in the CBS studio, like up in the 50s on the west side, and just sat there. And the whole day, like in at 7 o'clock in the morning, never made it, like was kind of on the edge of set, never got on set, never in front of camera. I was like, nice, like come back, work this show again. But I had probably the worst call time, like work situation since we've come back for Mrs. Maisel. I had a 5 a.m. call time in Manhattan. It wasn't bad. It was like up in the 80s, Upper West Side. But like 5 a.m., I have to drive in. There's no buses coming in from Jersey. I didn't even know the trains actually in New York, the subway starts running at 4 again. Mm-hmm. But like I still have no way to get in to Manhattan. Drove in, and I always like to be early. I get there, it's like 4:30, between 4:30 4:45. Get online for this parking garage. I pull up to the gate. The guy's like, you're the last car. We're filled up after you. I'm like, okay. Somebody pulls up on the sidewalk next to me. It was either the owner of the parking garage or the other guy who worked there. He's like, oh, you got to get out. I got to park my car in here. I'm like, yo, your boy just told me that I was in here. So he's like, no, we're closed. So I back out. I find another spot. Now, mind you, there's like 4 people from the crew behind me. Get in, but like casting text me. They go, where are you? And I was like, parking my car. And it's like,
because there's no transportation.
Yeah, I had to drive in parking. I think they knew that though, but like anyone who knows me knows like I'm like anal about being on time. And I just had this like woke moment of like, I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'm here. I will get to holding whenever I get there. Like I didn't care because I was like,
that's so funny. I just started feeling that way this year. Like I was always freaking out. Like I'm calling them when it's like 5 minutes before. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like I just got to walk from this. And then this year I'm like, you know what? Forget this. Like I'm going to be there. I'm not working at the call time. Like you just sit there. Like, why am I feeling bad about this? You're not going to be able to replace me anyway.
Yeah, that was my thing too. Like, I said, I was going to call up and be like, I can't find a parking space. Like I'm leaving. But I'm like, you can't replace me. Like, because I was like, that would be really like jerky.
Did they offer to put you on the Lyft account for that call time?
Yeah, but I was like, it was funny. I go, it's cheaper for you to just pay for my parking. I said, because if I take a Lyft or an Uber in from Jersey, that's going to run you. I said, they got to go through the toll. So that's like $15 right there on top of whatever they're paying.
There was a project just recently that I did do the Uber for because the project demanded it.
I think that was the one that I worked yesterday that I took.
Which I'm pretty sure you did because you had to type on a Saturday and a Sunday. But yes, what happened in this case here, being 8 miles west of the GW, they do pay it. And I was not the furthest that I knew of. But that Uber fare was $130 round trip. And they paid it direct deposit. So, and I know there was somebody down in Central Jersey that, or, like Basking Ridge or something, they paid that one too. And
yeah, I was like, it's cheaper for you. Like, I was like, yes, the one I worked yesterday, I was like, just because I take the bus and the buses are empty, dude. It's like taking an Uber. Like there's nobody on it.
I was saying the PATH train's usually pretty empty that way too.
Yeah. I jumped on the bus. I took, and it's like 59th Street. It was like, yeah, whatever. Because it like, production doesn't want you to take mass trends. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, the ironic thing is that basically they, I had to do the 2 COVID tests. Then I had to I paid for the COVID or the Uber fare, which they reimbursed. And then I spent the entire 13 and a half hour day on set, never going to set. So all of this stuff, these hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. And I was just like, you put me in a hotel and you gave me cold brew. Happy as a clam, but we'll say this thing. I will say this about cold brew. I am developing an affinity for this because the older I get, the less I'm liking early wake-ups. Now, we had the show last week. We had Scott Churchson on the show. I had to be up at 2:45 in the morning the next day. So we wrapped the show at 10 o'clock at night. I immediately went right, basically wound down, got about 4 hours of sleep, 2 cups of coffee. Thank you, Robin, for making the 2 cups ahead of time. And just lived on cold brew the entire day because we were on a project. I'm not going to mention location, but there's a show right now with Martin Short, Steve Martin, Nathan Lane, and for God's sake, Selena Gomez, which is really odd to bring that in there. heck of a great shoot, hilarious shoot called Only Murders in the Building. Great group, very friendly, very outgoing, but we were cold, and we were all tired and we were exhausted on this. And it was one of those things that they had the truck and they had the cold brew, and it got me through because I left the house at 3:15 in the morning. I didn't roll back till 10 o'clock at night. And the more I'm doing shoots like that, and I'm going to be doing Thursday and Friday up in Western Rockland County, I guess it's going to be. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be downing a lot of that stuff at that point too. So bless you to the makers of cold brew. You are a wonderful group of human beings. All right. So
my day, that was the same day I had Maisel. So I had to be up at you were up before me, but I was up super early too. I think I was up at
Guys, I've had 2 4 a.m.s in the last month, which I don't even know, what time does the crew get there? If the call is 4, are they there at 2? 7?
No, see, we're in bizarro land right now because with the testing, we're in before the crew now. So it's a lot of times.
Sure, but I guess locations got to be there to set up holding and put up signs. Yeah, maybe it's just locations.
Locations works on a different work schedule.
I would say so. The one where they don't go home. That's their work schedule.
Locations and hair and makeup, like BG hair and makeup, they don't work on the normal crew schedule. Right. So a lot of times they will also get wrapped out before the rest of the day is because it's we don't need you anymore. Have a good one, get out. So they're not as bad. While they do have locations, a lot of times will have to be there hours before crew. They're out earlier too, so it's not that bad. The challenge is when you have a lot of crew people that have to be there. If it's a 6 a.m. crew call, they got to be there at 4:30 in the morning. PAs, for example, background PA. I mean, they are there an hour and a half prior to crew call. They are
that
running
person said they got to holding at 3. So and to be fair, like Rob was saying, I try to be. If I can be there a half hour early, I guarantee myself breakfast at least. If you show up any later than that, you're not. The line to check in could be too long, and you're not getting breakfast. So, and for that particular one, they said, "Here's our Uber account. Mm-hmm. When you sign into Uber, use this code," and they paid forever. And they said, "We know there's no transportation." One of them was in Westchester, so unless you had a car, you couldn't even get there. So that was. Bus or Uber, there was a bus. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was in the East Village at the same thing. You can't get there at 4 a.m. I mean, I guess you can walk from wherever you came from. Someone said they took car service from Far Rockaway and it was $80 or $90. I was like, oh, well, I took my car and parked it on the side of the road because it's a Sunday. So
fair enough.
But I tell you what though, you start the day and night premium. And you're at overtime before you know it because you got there before the sun came up. So
yes, you did. That was the benefit. I was getting overtime by 2:15.
Right. So it's it sucks in the morning. If you don't have anything else to do for the rest of the day, it's not bad. It's like you said, if you have to come home and do another show.
Oh, I made over $500 for the day last week, and that was a great shoot because I was standing in this case.
Yeah.
But I will say this: you have Selena Gomez and Martin Short together, which, by the way, first of all, that's the bizarro land that you have these two in the same scene together, working together. The paparazzi come out for different reasons here. It's hilarious because the older people are looking at it saying, "Oh my God, Martin Short," and then all the younger kids are like, "Oh my God, Selena Gomez." And it's funny because they're both very, very chill. You don't really know, how a lot of these people are going to be. If they're going to be, standoffish, if they're going to be laid back. But that's why I give huge props because this production was just so chill. Can't discuss anything, obviously, how that part works. But it was something where it was really kind of funny because I kind of had a weird concern that it was going to be very uptight, very stressful and all this kind of stuff. No, everybody on that production was a peach. Thank you very much.
And that's a Disney production too.
By technicality, yes, it is.
I mean,
it's Hulu, which is,
Right. Let's put it this way. The paperwork all says Disney. The training is all Disney. It's top-notch everything.
Yeah, everything is basically Disney in one more factor or another. Which, by the way, I need to point this out. Rest in peace, Radio Disney, because Radio Disney is closing its doors after 25 years.
Wait, it's not even on Sirius or anything?
Killed it. It just closed up shop about a week ago.
Yikes.
One of the other projects that I have, I partner up with a guy who basically talks about pop culture news and everything. And I found it out from him because he gave me the synopsis of what he was covering. I was like, Radio Disney ended? It can't be Kids Bop that goes. It's got to be Radio Disney.
Right. Well, at least
I have XM
Kids
in
Bop
my car.
Kids Bop is songs that you have heard before. Radio Disney, you're like, what? I don't know what this is. I'm not listening to this.
Will there be a Kids Bop of WAP?
Yes,
Asking for a friend. Asking for a friend.
Yes, but the words will not make sense because they'll have to replace all of them.
They'll have to replace literally everything.
So it'll be like, I don't think this is the same song.
In some weird level of morbidity, I'm almost curious to see if that exists.
Is it XM? Kids Bop is on Sirius XM,
Yeah.
right? Because I've caught it one time
channel.
flipping channels like in my mom's car, and I was like, "What is this?" And I forget what song it was, and it was like a hip hop song, and I'm like, "These aren't the words to this song," but it's funny when you're like, "Oh my god!" Like they'll literally spin anything into a Kids Bop song.
Imagine how the kids feel when they find out those aren't the real words. They were shafted from the beginning.
Okay, there's Kid Bop's parodies. Sadly, there's no actual one just yet. I looked it up. Yeah, there's Wet and Mushy is one of them. Wet Fat Yoshi.
It's coming.
Give it time.
But to be fair, like, who would even be listening to Radio Disney? I feel like the Disney Channel is lost in an array of other cable networks.
Disney,
like, it's not.
Yeah. Well, Disney for what it is now, obviously it's everything on Disney Plus and everything that comes from that. In this case, Falcon Winter Soldier comes out on Friday, which I admittedly am curious about because I like those two characters more than I actually like Captain America. So, but it's all about whatever they can get on Disney Plus, which is really kind of funny because they refer to like the 90s stuff as like retro.
Classic rock.
Not the 80s, not like the 80s cartoons that we grew up with, or any of that stuff, Tailspin, the original DuckTales, Chip and Dale. But it's like, Phineas and Ferb is like, old school. It's like, no.
Well, those guys are like 30 now.
I know, yeah. Well, that's part of it,
to be fair.
But yeah, it's like all the stuff that was from the 90s and 2000, because, 2000 was 21 years ago, dear God in heaven. But okay, so like I said, find us out as always on Film Set Tales on Twitter and also on Facebook at Tales from the Film Set. I would like to change that backdrop at some point to include both, so I think we're going to do that. We're going to talk vomit. I've been trying to figure out a good way to kind of explain this story. This was something that I will be upfront. I love doing informative murder porn. If you know your South Park references, informative murder porn are those shows that are on like Discovery Channel, ID Discovery, about, so I murdered,
It's all the
so
reenactments.
What's that? So I murdered.
All the reenactments.
Oh yeah, the reenactment stuff. I love doing those, partly because they film so much in Jersey. But I had the idea the other day. I was talking about this to somebody, and there's one on there called Monsters Inside Me. And it's on Animal Planet, and it's about these reenactments about, weird things, like someone ends up getting like a growth in the side of their head that ends up being like a tarantula or some like weird thing.
It's always strange parasites. It's like things you don't want to have to worry about.
Oh yeah. And it's one of those things that I don't even know. I don't really remember how I got this thing. I guess I must have done some audition, maybe video audition. I forget. But one of the things that's nice about the reenactments or any of that stuff, Mysteries of the Museum, is that you don't really have to be a close match to the person. You just have to be something kind of within the same genus.
In the style of.
If you match the genus and the species, you're good enough. That's basically how they usually take these things.
Are you a human?
There was one in there where this guy literally had like a tapeworm inside his mouth. And the tapeworm was moving up like through his head and then down and everything like this. So I had to do this whole reenactment of this tapeworm. And, so you do the usual things where you're sitting there, you're looking in the mirror and you're doing all the reenactment things that you're supposed to do. And you're looking at stuff, and then you have your spouse, you're talking to your spouse, reenactment, everything. Like I said, usually it's just pantomime. So it's glorified lead background, if you want to call it that. And they had a scene there where he eventually he finds this thing in the middle of the night. and he ends up having to like dig into his mouth with a pair of tweezers to find it, poke the skin, and literally pull the thing out. In this case here, this was done immediately after lunch. We were up in, I think it was in Wayne, New Jersey. We shot this one. So it was some dude's house. And my problem that I have is that I have a really, really weak gag reflex. So I can, no joke, I can actually vomit by sticking my tongue in the back of my mouth and just go. You know, it's like that simple. There was a bit from Family Guy where Peter just kind of puts his hand in his mouth like this and just go. It's about all it takes for me. So they had me do this scene here right after lunch with basically sticking my finger down my throat like this. And every single take I start gagging, and the director, who just didn't care of any of this stuff, he's just like, all right, let's go do it again. And I start sticking it further and further. And all of a sudden in the middle of the take, all the stuff that I had for lunch, just boom, right into this dude's sink, spray. When it went on, like, the sink itself, it went on the faucet, and on, like, everything was on there. It was a little bit on the mirror. I just went like full projectile. And this guy's like, all right, that's a good take. We're going to do it again. I'm like, should we clean this? Do you think you got it? So it's like, all right, yeah, can we clean that? So he just didn't care. It's like your lead actor just threw up, and you're just like, cool, let's do it again. What they ended up doing with it is they ended up showing like this giant tapeworm, which to their credit, they CGI'd. But what they did is they cooked a single strand of vermicelli pasta and then CGI'd around it to make it look what it was supposed to be looking like. And oh my God, but it was funny because I probably threw up on that about 3 or 4 times because I kept sticking my finger back down. I kept throwing up, and this guy's like, good. The rest of the crew were like, you all right? You got this? Like, yeah, fine. The director's like, cool, we got it. Let's move on. It's like, dude, there's a piece of carrot in this thing. This is the fun of reenactment work.
There was a time on Power, the original Power, where we were filming in Far Rockaway, down on, like, right on off the beach. And it was so cold. It was like the first project I had worked after the holiday break in January. They put us up in a hotel. We had a 2-night shoot. And I remember where it was like probably 18 degrees out without the wind chill. So it was like 6 to 4 with the wind chill. And I remember between takes we're waiting, and they're like, hey, hold on, we got to wait. One of the guys over, the crew guys, got sick. And we look over, and there's somebody like kind of doubled over with their hands on their knees, puking on the side of the road. And they're like, oh, is that the camera guy? And like A and B camera, like, nah, we're here. We're like, well, wait, who is that? It was 50. 50 was in the scene, just walked off. He's like, hold on. And just started like blowing chunks and walked back. He's like, took some water. He's like, all right, I'm good. We're like, are you all right? He goes, yeah. He's like, it's cold and whatever. Because we had just come back from lunch. He's like, it wasn't sitting with me. Let's go shoot it. Like, but it's funny because in Hustlers, when we shot my scenes with Lily, and it was the fake vomit she used was Sprite and animal crackers. Yeah. And I remember being in the back of the car, the Escalade with Kiki, and Lorraine comes to the window and she goes, how is it? She goes, it's all right. And so Lorraine walks away and we go, what does it taste like? She goes, what you would think animal crackers and Sprite taste like. She's like, I really don't need to have a pretend gag reflex on this one. She's like, it's just like in there. But people, like, she had it. I just watched it again over the weekend. It was on Showtime. And I always remember she had saran wrap in her lap to like try and catch it. And she's just like spitting out this like Sprite and animal crackers into her lap every take. And I'm like, I remember just like one of those scenes like in your life where I'm in the back, like basically, I think I had shorts on or something. Might have been wrapped up in I think I had my sweatpants on because it was just me from the waist up at that point. Like sweatpants, no shirt. And I'm just like, this movie's going to be awesome. Just this scene alone. Like if anybody knew what we were really doing, like Kiki's in the back, like having a blast with us. We're like, all right. But yeah, like the vomit, it's funny when you see like when it happens on set, like for real, you're like, oh wait, that's not fake. Like, oh, you get the smell. You're like, oh, oh no. Okay, we got to take 5. That's when I'm like, I got to go. Like if it's the smell more than anything. Because I've
You
been
guys
around.
remember the smell of the stuff that cleans it up from when you were in elementary?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, like sawdust. Like
that pink
we used
stuff,
to use
whatever that was.
sawdust.
So
The
I can
sawdust, yeah.
smell that from like a mile away. Like that's and I only work in elementary school, so it's like once a week. I can smell the cleaner upper from down the hall, and I'm like, stomach bugs going around again.
There's always one kid usually, that'll throw up once a month.
Well, and it's always like the real young kids, they don't realize they're gonna throw up until they're throwing up. Like they don't know that that's like a bad feeling. So they're like, I think something's not right, but by the time they're like, maybe I should get to the garbage can or something. No, it's like all over. This is why they should not have carpet on the floor in the hallway of any school. Like, why do you have carpet? Like now you gotta go like, that doesn't come out of carpet.
That is a really, really good point. I mean, from an aesthetic standpoint, it's nice, but
yeah, they do it for sound insulation because it keeps the building like a little quieter when people are walking down the hall. But you don't want to be cleaning bodily fluids out of like carpet. So
let's just hope it's only vomit.
It's not. It's not. But that is a just very distinct smell of the vomit, and then the cleaning up of the vomit that I've actually missed over the last year of not going to school is like, I really haven't smelled any vomit this year. It's not, my year really hasn't been complete. So
there might be something, maybe you can order something on Amazon that recreates the shot.
Oh, you know what I can do? I can just go hang around the Hoboken Path Station. Like,
that bathroom over there.
No, I like in the, like the pier outside with like the benches. I've seen more people puke in the bushes there. Like
Hoboken's a party town.
Eating a pizza, puking it up, and then eating more pizza. I'm just like, I don't even remember. I don't know if you guys remember when the trains weren't all running to Penn Station, which probably didn't affect any of you, but the train line that I was on, you could only go to Hoboken and take the path.
That happened
for like a whole summer. And people with monthly tickets were like livid because because they paid all this money to live in a town that has a direct train, and then they're like, sorry, it terminates in Hoboken. And then you're just in Hoboken, now you got to get on the path. So that was one of those nights where I was waiting for the train back from Hoboken, and it's just like, I forgot this is a step ahead of Penn Station, because this is like people have been out drinking all night, and now they're waiting for the train. I'm just like, too much vomit. Just too much.
You can get a vomit scented candle.
I saw that.
And did you see my comment at the bottom after that?
So better than Gwyneth. Oh my God. So this is like, it's kind of a set related story. Was my buddy Laz has a Twitch stream with some friends called Unstable Gamers. And like on Saturday nights, they do this thing where the viewers can participate. They'll do like a Jackbox thing. So one night, the Gwyneth Paltrow candle became like the topic, like the running joke. It was 4 days before the Gwyneth Paltrow candle exploded in somebody's house.
That was one in London.
London. And we had this thing going, it's called Unstable Gamers. And for like 2 weeks in a row, whatever the running joke became on the show, like that became like actual topical news by like Wednesday. And he's like, what are we doing? Like, is somebody watching? Or like, I was like, dude, I don't know, but it's working. Like, and their viewership started picking up. I was like, just got to keep it going. And it was funny because I started the Gwyneth Paltrow thing and nobody really knew what it was. And it went on. I mean, for like, it started at the top of the show and it went on for like 2 hours. And it was just like, when you play Jackbox games, like, it just kept coming back up as like answers and everything. And it was hysterical. And like 3 nights later, I'm like, Laz, the candle blew up in somebody's house. And he's like, this is amazing.
I have to wonder about here's the thing. I don't know how accurate that scent is, but just the very fact that you would market something like that, whether it smells like it or not, it's a really questionable business tactic. I mean, I know that you sometimes see that, what was it? Like one of William Shatner's toupees went for sale on eBay or something like that, which, okay, fine.
That's just creepy though.
That's creepy, but that's weird. But then you basically take the Gwyneth Paltrow thing and that just takes weird to a brand new level. And I mean, I also have to question the kind of person.
There's a candle for everybody, okay?
Apparently.
We don't
Well,
judge.
is that
Well, I do, but the rest of you.
Rule 34 of the candle internet.
There's a candle.
Look that up, kids, if you don't know what the Rule 34 is.
That's right. Just like there's a college for everybody, there's a candle for everybody.
Yeah, but I have to wonder who the kind of person was in London. They'd be like, oh, what? Can I buy that?
How do you know? Maybe it was delivered to their place by mistake and they kept it.
Could be a gag gift. I've gotten dudes some weird gag gifts over the years, though, because that's what guys do for each other's birthdays. So you never know. But all right, so 30 minutes in at this point. Find us always on Facebook at Tales from the Film Set or Film Set Tales on Twitter. We're sitting here talking about weird things that basically people buy. The experiences of vomit, real, fake, and otherwise on film sets. By the way, Jasmine, I want to point this out. I was looking at my schedule. We talked previously about the Oppenheimer strategies, the Richard Gere project.
You did.
Yes. It turns out that yesterday was the anniversary, the 6-year anniversary.
I was going to say, it's got to be 6 or 7 years.
6-year anniversary of when we actually went all the way up to Albany, sat in a chair the entire time, got fed by the PAs who brought us food, and then they filmed the scene on the train, and then we're just like, okay, cool. We're going to drive the train back for 3 hours. Just hang out until we get there. Wi-Fi works, outlets work.
Wait, did we pick you up in Albany? Because I got on in Sunnyside.
What happened was they screwed us up.
Well, so, wait, I'll tell you what, while you were sitting in holding, we were sitting in our own cars, and there was no bathroom.
Ooh.
Because there was no one at that holding for hours and hours and hours. So our call time should have been like whenever the train was leaving, not 3 p.m.
The train left at like 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, no, we sat from like 2 to 6, and we're like, oh, we're going to need to find a bathroom. But we're in like this residential neighborhood in Sunnyside. There's not even like a restaurant. The holding was a church that was locked. I don't even know if we ever went in the church.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know in our case, they inadvertently drove us to Long Island first and then brought us back to Sunnyside.
Right.
Which was interesting because you know what happens when you travel out of the zone?
Oh.
Rob, you want to answer this one?
Oh, you get paid.
Yes. So we got paid for the in time for travel because someone mistakenly took us from Sunnyside, where the trains were, to Long Island, where the rest of the cast was, back to Sunnyside again, and then we went north to Albany.
I remember just them being like, hey, this is a late at night train scene, so if you fall asleep, that would be great. Like, no one should be like talking to their friends like you're all sleeping. I'm like, well, you couldn't get a better nap than this.
And,
But yeah, I remember the train turning around. I was like, how do you even turn? Like at K turns, there's a track that it can like.
It probably does have something like that. Yeah.
Well, it has like a side track that it goes up that track a little bit, then it can go the other way, and then it's facing the other way. And I always thought that it was weird though. When we turned around, the lights are on the other side of people's faces. Like, we all should have gotten up and switched sides.
I wondered that too, because for whatever reason, they had it backed up. You know, the display was, I don't know, let them figure it out. I don't even know whatever happened with that.
I just thought, I was like, well, maybe you can't really tell. But I was like, but now the lighting's literally backwards. Like, when you're on the, you know, like the boat has 2 sides. When you're on the outside of the train, the light from the side of the track hits you that way. But now the train's going the opposite direction. Like, so in order for us to face the right way, now we're on the other side of the track, and there's no lights there. So I never saw the movie. Did you end up watching it? Did it ever come out?
It probably did. I mean, unlike that, whatever that.
I think it's on Netflix.
Or
I think it's on one of the streaming platforms. I remember working on that as well. It was a frigid. We had an exterior shoot up by the Carnegie Deli. It was like the Brooklyn Diner. But it was cold, man. I was like, oh, it was like one of the first days back after the holiday break. And I'm like, oh, like it always feels like the first day back in January is always like in the teens or the single digits for some reason. Like,
yeah, you're never getting a good day till the beginning of April. You know what I mean? Like, you just know that's the start of a really hard quarter. Just because it's real cold. Speaking of things that never came out, let's recount how many things we worked on that never came out. God's Behaving Badly, not the Golden Time Day. I haven't ever gotten Golden Time, but people did get Golden on that. That never came out. I don't think they could ever settle salary on that.
They had a lot of people in that movie too.
That was the problem. They had too many heavy hitters, and they couldn't agree on who was getting paid what, so it died. And it was
Yeah, but
expensive.
Cast still got paid.
Well, they got paid.
Everybody got paid for what they shot. Yeah, but
they got paid for the days. But like,
there was a movie that actually I don't know if it ever came out, but it was called Stuck, and it had I think her name is Amy Madigan. She was like, you know, the wife in Field of Dreams, if you remember that movie. Oh. And for whatever reason, Stuck became an apropos term because they ran out of money, and the crew had set it up that if we do not have money by like noon on Tuesday, we walk. On noon on Tuesday, they walked.
And that was the end.
And that was the end. It took them about 8 to 10 months before they finally paid us for this. And because of the fact they had no money, they had to raise enough money to be able to actually pay the people. Let alone forget finishing. I don't even know if they ever did or not. But it's weird because it's got to be a bizarre experience when the project runs out of money. Because usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's an escrow account that is there to be able to pay everybody. Apparently, what they did is they took the escrow money and just spent it on everything else, and then literally liquidated all the savings.
There's probably a lawsuit to be had there because there's supposed to also be a bond, so that kind of like a construction project, if the builder goes bankrupt or they walk off the job, like all the vendors still get paid. And I'm pretty sure most productions have to be bonded. Maybe under a certain budget they don't, but it's almost like they have an insurance policy for this exact thing. So I'd be suspect if they were able to that's separate money from the contingency, but it just seems like that's so poorly.
Was this the 07 or 2018 Stuck?
What's that?
Which was it, like a while ago? Was it the 2000?
Yeah, it was like 2000. I want to say it's like 2014. Give me a sec.
It might have been 2018 by the time it came out.
Yeah, I just looked at. There's one. Yeah, there's two of them on IMDb. One's 07 and one's 2018. But yeah, like Jasmine said, there's usually it's bonded, like it's insured. But yeah, it's because I was going to say if it was pre 2012 too, it's a whole different case because you've got two separate unions and everything.
Yeah, it's the 2017 one, so it definitely came out. Giancarlo Esposito, Ashanti, Omar Shapiro. Yeah, okay, that's the one. But it took a long time for us to get paid on that one.
How about you, Rob? Anything you worked that never came to fruition?
The only thing I can think of, there was a movie that it was actually the very first film I did background on. It was called The Rebound. It was with Justin Bartha and
that dude never ages.
What's her name? Spanish actress. Oh my God. Married to the guy who had throat cancer.
Catherine
Zeta-Jones.
Michael Douglas, yeah.
Yes. And and she was like the first, like at the time, like A-list celebrity I ever saw on set. And he was a nightmare to work with from what I remember the crew. He had bought shirts for the crew that said Justin Bartha has a big hue. And he's like, I want you guys to wear this. And they're like,
cool.
Like, no, they hated his guts. And the movie I finally saw it a couple of years ago on Netflix. And I was like, I wonder if this movie ever came out. And I just started typing it into like streaming platforms like Netflix, Amazon. And I was like, oh, it's on Netflix. It wasn't a bad movie, but that was like, it never hit theaters. There's been a couple of
straight to streaming.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be in theater, like, and it just never made it out.
But I guess, there's a couple of those. It was a Selena Gomez movie. That it was the Outskirts. It was supposed to be. It was a Disney Kids movie, and they couldn't get the distribution right, and they sent it right to like DVD or something. It never hit the theater. I don't know if it streamed anywhere. That was like and it was kind of like a low budget thing. So there was a ton of us featured. I was like, oh, this will be like some sweet airtime. Yeah, it never even like I'm not buying the DVD to like watch it. So oh well, there goes that. And did either of you guys work on Do No Harm when it was in film?
How's this for an answer?
Well, by the time I worked on it, I think it had already been canceled, but they kept shooting. I worked on like episode 6 and they never aired past episode 3.
They never.
That was in Philly, right?
Yeah.
It was the lowest rated premiere of any show in NBC history.
It was pretty bad. Like
it was not. Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing. I can't remember the guy's name.
Stephen Pascal.
Well, no, him I remember. He was from Rescue Me. He was under a lot of stress. He was very pressed up. But there was the dude. Did you watch the show?
I watched like 2 episodes. I watched
Okay.
whatever episodes there
2
because
of 3. That's most of it.
Whoever was the guy from Walking Dead, Jeff something, and I can't remember his name. That dude was a dream and a half. That guy was an unbridled dream. You know, I remember running into him at a Walking Dead convention because I'll find it later. I'll find it at 3:00 in the morning. And no, not Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but
Michael Esper.
No, his name I thought was
John Carroll Lynch.
That's the guy. Yes, not Jeff. John. That dude was such a dream because it's a very stressful environment. Stephen Pasquale is basically getting his first lead ever.
I think he was getting divorced at that time too. I just worked with his ex-wife on another project. I was like, "Who is she?" And I looked her up, and I'm like, and I happened to click the bio, and on IMDb it tells you like spouses and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, God bless you. You were married to him." He was another one that he was kind of difficult to work with. Like crew wasn't really big fans of.
There was some sarcasm that I was listening to there too, and yeah, but it was a high pressure thing. But John Carroll Lynch, like I said, was a brilliant and kind human being on that.
I had a really good day with Lin-Manuel Miranda that day. Before, nobody knew who he was. He had only just written, like, In the Heights just came on to Broadway. Hadn't really, like, no one had seen it. And he just liked saying show tunes to himself all day. Like, that was what he did because it was, it was like none of these episodes were fun. They were all, like, super depressing. The vocabulary was, like, it was all, like, neuroscience stuff that nobody knew how to pronounce. Nobody knew what they were saying. It was like pretty tedious. But what people don't know is you get treated a little better in Philly. Like, oh, they give you a parking garage. Yeah. It's like, and it's not because there aren't any parking garages in New York that they could give you. It's because everyone in Philly uses a car. And if you want people to work on your film, you give them a place to park the car. And I was just like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Like, wait, what? You pay for this? And they're like, oh yeah, no, it's we rented this parking garage for background.
And the funny thing is, Philly, since it has so few things, they have to a lot of times import people from New Jersey and New York.
Oh, it's all the same people I see in New York, and we all live in New Jersey.
Now, one thing I'm going to add to that is in 2012, at the time we were doing Do No Harm, I had the single worst bout of herniated discs I have ever had in my life. I've had 3 bouts. That was far and away the worst that one that I had. That was so bad. Basically, there's something called a drop foot, where when the pain is so bad that you literally cannot lift your leg, you're dragging your leg behind you. I had that going on in 2012. We were shooting Do No Harm. The problem was wardrobe was never anywhere near holding or set. It was a quarter of a mile down. So I'm sitting there walking, scraping the foot literally on the ground, walking the quarter of a mile out, stopping every like 100, 200 feet because you have to stop just to relax the nerves because it's hurting so bad. And then you get there, it's like, yeah, you're fine. Okay, go back. So you got to take the 20-minute walk back to go the quarter of a mile. Oh my God, I hated that production in so many different ways, and that was only one of them.
That filmed in the was it like the old like Philly Tribune like news building or something too?
Something like that, yeah.
And they used it was like the part of UPenn Medical School that wasn't being used anymore. They used for like it's basically on the campus of UPenn, which was like it wasn't in a great neighborhood, but I mean,
it's Philly's not that bad though.
No, well, and also I wouldn't want to live there, but I didn't ever feel like I was unsafe walking my car or anything.
Yeah, never. I mean, there's spots in Philly like you go down. Philly's, it's kind of like New York in a lot of ways. Like you could go from even Jersey, like you could go from like a nice neighborhood to like I'm kind of in the hood neighborhood pretty quick.
I was talking to somebody on set about so the Equalizer films in downtown Newark. But I don't know that I'm trying to remember if we talked about it. I think it was somebody else. And they set up the same thing like Scott's saying. The base camp's like it's not that far. It's like 0.4 miles from wherever you're supposed to be in holding. But the way you have to walk, it's like, all right, in the day this looks okay. But as it gets dark, it's like, guys, this isn't like New York where people live here and are walking around and like looking out for the neighborhood. Downtown Newark, nobody lives in downtown Newark but like people who don't have a place to live. And it was between the PATH station and the Prudential Center. So if you know that walk, it's not a great walk after dark. That's more of a, as I'd say, that's more of a scamper, or maybe a
great Barry Melrose quote that almost got him fired from ESPN when the Devils moved to the Prudential Center. He goes, "Yeah, it's great. Just don't go like more than 2 blocks in any direction." And it was like, anybody who knew the area was like, "Yeah, he's kind of right." Like, I mean, you go south, you end up in Ironbound, which isn't a bad area. But if you went like north, south, or east, northwest or east, you were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm in like
we had a friend who bought a condo like right in the Ironbound, like a half a mile south of the train station, thinking that the gentrification would spread out to his general vicinity. He's like, I'll give it 5 to 10 years. Like, it's not a bit. He didn't need to use the train. It was gated. He had his car was behind the gate. Whatever. He stayed there for like 8 years, and he said it only got worse. It never got better. So he ended up selling it. But he's like, oh, if you guys are ever by the PATH station, just like walk to my apartment. I'm like, no. Like, I'll bring my car and I'll just drive. But it was like, so I feel like, they're thinking, oh, like we're in New Jersey. It's so much better than being in the Bronx or something. But to me, it's actually worse, because at least in New York City, there are neighborhoods, and in neighborhoods, people live there, and they watch out for what's going on, and they take stock of what's going on. And this is just like a barren wasteland at night. So I was like, and I didn't overnight. They were giving safety rides back to base camp, and it was like 0.2 miles. So that was like kind of I was like, yeah, I'm going to park my car in the garage right next to holding. I don't care how much it costs. This is worth my. Meanwhile, like the other night, I was walking. We're on the Upper East Side. I think I walked 12 blocks in the most gorgeous neighborhood and didn't see a single person. Like, not even a homeless person. I was like, this is also creepy. I mean, you're in the nicest possible neighborhood, but there's no people. Like, it was also a little bizarre. I was like, well, this is the best it could be, I guess.
You know what area like irks me is the FIDI, Financial District.
Yes, I was just gonna say that.
Especially on like weekends, like when we'll shoot down there on weekends, and it's
Sunday night. You're just like, was there an evacuation order? Like, where is everybody?
Because even on like we'll shoot at night on a weekday, and everything down there closes when the market, like when Wall Street closes, and they're done. And I remember shooting like an overnight one time, and I'm like, I thought the same thing you just said. I'm like, was there like, did they evacuate like the financial district?
Or is it like a stay inside, a shelter in place? And
yeah.
That's the worst when you get, there's a couple real big hotels they use down there for holding, which I'm sure you guys have been, I can't think of the name. They're all on like the corner of Pearl and Water.
Yep.
But those are always walk away. I'm like, are you joking? I need to take a cab to go find some food. Like there's like a Chipotle and a smash burger. And then, and it closes at 5 p.m. So
even though we had one weekend, they were like, oh, we have a walk away. And I think somebody called the office and was like, we can't do a walk away on a Sunday. Nothing's open.
Right. Literally cannot walk away to anywhere.
Yeah. And I think they had to like rush call catering in. They were like, we got there. They're like, okay, we're going to get you guys food. Don't worry. Like, whatever. But
I just had the same thing. They told us walk away. We were at the Met, like on the steps of the Met, Gossip Girl style. And they're like, walk away lunch. I'm like, okay, there's the hot dog guy and a Mr. Softy across the street. There's no fast. Upper East Side is like all nice, sit down. You can't just bumble in there and be like, oh, can I get something to go? Like, it's all really nice restaurants. Oh, that, by the way, are still closed because they didn't even reopen. So thankfully or not thankfully, it was like, well, you could walk away here or just take the bus back to Holding and get wrapped. And we're like, well, we can't stay here. There's no food. So... But it's the same thing. There's certain neighborhoods that just never, I don't know if you guys have ever been to downtown Chicago, but that's the same way where you're like, oh, okay, like I came in, my flight came in late, like I got to my hotel, it's 8:00, let me go get some dinner. There's nothing open but like the popcorn at the movie theater.
Sounds like when I was in Memphis.
Right. Well, I'm like, is this not, and then I'm like, oh, it's not a real city. That's, it's like, it's not New York. That's why, I'm sorry, like, I don't even live in New York, and I cannot imagine living in any of these other places.
That's one of the problems that happens when you grow up in this area. You automatically assume every quote-unquote major city is like New York. And then you go to another city, and you're like, this is the suburb. I mean, we're just talking about Philly. Philly is the equivalent of like some parts of Queens or Brooklyn.
Right.
Memphis.
I would argue that downtown Brooklyn has actually gotten bigger, like architectural wise, than Philly. Philly hasn't built anything big.
Yeah, but my point, my point is that you're so used to seeing what New York, like say Times Square is, that when you go to another major city, like you said, Chicago, or you go out west to, I would say, San Diego, San Francisco. No, Vegas, I can see Vegas has a similarity there.
But that's like a different situation because that's all tourists. Like no one lives in downtown Vegas.
No, I know, but it's one of those things that, like I said, you go to a major city and you're like, where is everybody? This is not a major city. This is a suburb. Atlanta is the same kind of thing. So.
Boston is like that too.
Right. Yeah, I had a 4-hour layover in Boston.
I felt good about some of the European cities. Like I felt good about Paris. I was like, oh, this is a real city. Or London, but it's like, the cities from the 400 AD, they've been developed for many, many hundreds of years. And, Phoenix, that's been around for like 100 years. It's not really exactly...
Well, that's the other thing too. When you go to Europe and you have places that have 1,000-year-old history, you go to the town of Bath and you're like, oh my God, the entire history of my entire country goes back like 250 years or whatever it is. They're like, yeah, 250. Hold my beer.
Right.
So, all right, we got to start wrapping this up at this point because we're getting the alert 3.5 minutes, probably about 2 now. So, want to give some closing thoughts if you guys have any. I've got a couple of ideas of what I want to talk about going forward, but I'll talk to you guys off air about that. Find us one more time, as always, on Twitter, on Film Set Tales, and on Facebook at Tales from the Film Set as well. Going forward, I will be looking to probably have a guest on every other week is the way I'm looking at probably doing this. So I'll talk to you guys more about that. Any closing thoughts if you got them?
I can't wait for it to start getting warmer so I can not do summer exteriors in 30 degrees. That's all I have to say about that.
That's so
another project I worked on that has not come out yet. I just looked it up. Is called Once Upon a Time in Staten Island. Which is
I remember that.
Yes. So it's
didn't come out.
It's due to come out this year. Frank Grillo's in it, and I stood in for him on Billions last year. And for those who don't know the little synopsis of it, it's actually about like Staten Island in 1982, and it revolves around the premiere of Rocky III. So it's nuts. But it was one of the last days I worked on Billions, Frank was telling us that Sly had actually seen like a teaser, some preview of it, and like loved it. And he supposedly Sly invested in it, and that's how they got it going to come out again finally. So definitely looking forward to that. It was. Well, I worked a couple days on it. It was pretty fun, and some of this stuff. There's a great scene that involves the word that from WAP from WAP, and it was like one of the funniest things I've ever shot. Just Daniel Sully and another guy that I've stood in for on other projects, just doing this whole bit as cops with the word, and I was like with kids, which makes it even funnier. You're like, oh my God, like this is totally like. I don't know how this is going to fly. Someone's going to lose it. But I'm looking forward to see, hopefully it comes out this year and see how good it is.
And real quick, since we're talking about Rocky III real fast, what theme song from an iconic movie franchise, an iconic movie that came out around the same time, what iconic song was supposed to be used in Rocky III? You're the Best Around by Joe Esposito.
Oh, okay.
But it went to Karate Kid.
Really?
Yes. So anyway.
Something new every day.
Exactly. We're educational on the show. So that's going to do it. Find us always on, like I said, Film Set Tales on Twitter, Tales from the Film Set on Facebook. We are available on 35 different platforms across 4 different continents. Antarctica will be on there at some point. For Jasmine Bloch-Krempels and Mr. Robert Stats, my name is Scott Churchson. This has been Tales from the Film Set. Thanks as always,